You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way. Welcome to the party. I'm Savage.
I'm Shane.
And I'm Liam.
And rustle your shopping bags, folks. That bell you're here ringing is the sound of the over the door as you enter the bazaar, or perhaps the mall, or maybe go online to do a little commercial or retail therapy. We are, of course, talking this episode about shopping in games. A strange thing to talk about. Why, Shane, or Warlord Scarr, are we going to blow off our hard-earned income and a little steam by perusing the shelves? What is it about shopping in games?
Before we get into it, I want to give out a bit this bazaar. It doesn't have hand sanitizer at the door, and there are several people in the shop not wearing masks.
Well, that's what the battle axes are for.
I'm sure social distancing. If you're further away than your long axe, then they're okay.
But yeah, this is one I've had on the list for a while. I have these pretensions of thinking about the economics of your average role-playing session. And just you get these moments in many games where someone suggests that we should head to the store and stock up on supplies. And a lot of these sessions can end with dead shopkeepers because of various factors. And I guess I'm curious about poking this bear a little of why do we have such a lot of people seem to have a very negative appearance to the whole practice of economics in things. It's like going to a shop is somehow just a sign that you need to shoot this session in the head, or the NPCs involved at least. I don't know. Have people just found this as being a thing? Or have they gotten into a reflexive habit of abstracting every trip to the store in order to scoot things along?
I think it depends on the game itself. If it's a game where stuff is fairly commonplace, then, it shouldn't really be a problem. Like, it can also depend. Some systems have got things built into them as well. Like, so if you look at any system that has like a rarity value system built into it, it can be that, okay, you're in a medieval world, you have the money, you want to rock up and go, hey, blacksmith, give me a weapon. They can just give you a weapon. If you want to say, hello, blacksmith, give me a weapon with these specific traits, that's probably going to have to be a custom job. It's probably not going to be available off the shelf. Systems can vary that with that as well, and it can also be down to legality as well. Thinking with places like Traveller, whereby, okay, you want to get your comm system in Traveller, tech level this, that's fine, but it's got law level this, so you're not getting that Gauss pistol. It's really a diverse topic, so I think we probably need to frame things and figure out bits in terms of how you're talking about it. I mean, just are we just talking about basically is doing in-game shopping something to do during game time, or are you talking about doing it during downtime?
Well,
let's pros and cons for that. Exactly that. I think exactly that. Let's address it at the table. First of all, why is this taking up hero time? Like, as Liam pointed out, a lot of this could just be a couple of rolls on the table, maybe a couple of questions for your DM, and off you go. But
I want to roleplay. I want to roleplay with the quirky shopkeeper. The shopkeeper's quirky, right? He's got he's got an affectation. He's got.
Hello, good sir. May I interest you in this +3 longsword?
Yeah.
Only one previous owner. Met in their ghastly demise.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to meet people that aren't trying to kill you, and you're not trying to kill them. And they don't
necessarily, as Shane has mentioned, that murder has happened.
I do remember a one-shot we played a long time ago. There was quite a bit of hilarity, including a visit to the shops on London Bridge, which did involve, I think, at least one shop falling into the river. It's nothing to do with anything, but there you go. Shopping is sometimes a comedy episode as well, as you get into sort of town-based hijinks. I guess you need to know why you're putting it on the table, and you need to know what. Well, you don't need to know what you might encounter. Almost anything could happen, but you probably want to have some idea. First, if you're running the game, you want to have some idea of what your character, what your players actually want to buy. Because if you go entirely with a sort of random roll, then you're going to disappoint people very quickly, because they've spent the last 4 sessions wishing on a star for a particularly gnarly Vorpal sword or a silenced pistol. And lo and behold, they finally drag themselves out of their den of intrigue or dungeon, get to a safe commercial space, plop down their hard-earned loot and go, right, the thing I want, can I have it? And you go, roll some dice, no. Well, I think we all know how that session's going to end.
Okay, but I mean, so I'm going to think of a real-world example from a couple of weeks ago when I had to cut some coving, which is the plaster stuff that goes at the junction of between the wall and the ceiling of your house or a room, right? And I went to a hardware shop to get a miter box. Now, a miter box is basically just a box you stick a straight yoke in, and you can cut certain angles with a saw. Most hardware shops should have them. Do you know how many hardware shops I had to go to get a miter box?
5?
Did you find
5.
it in the end?
Yeah, 5 hardware shops to get a miter box.
The devilish part of me wants to ask why you wouldn't just build one. But I do understand that they're
because you just go to a hardware shop and you get one, and they didn't have one, so I just went to the next one, and they didn't have one, so I went to the next one, and then it was a quest. God damn it! I was not giving up until I got a goddamn miter box.
Okay, great example. Yeah, I mean you can turn the acquisition of anything into a great place to introduce little hooks for players. Well, I could sell you an alchemist miter box, but I'm out of the sentient wood needed to make them. So is there any chance you could pop down to Gimli's lumberyard and ask them if the delivery's coming? And you go, so look, I'm here. Alchemist guy says you have the wood. Where is it? And say, well, we would have the wood, except our delivery caravan is stuck down at the gate with the guards for something about the driver said something. Is there any chance you go down and have a talk with the guards and see if they'll let them through? Off you go. So yeah, Liam, brilliant example. Great way to fold the frustrations of going to the shops into a campaign. You can make it sort of more involved. Shane, where does it all come from? Why do we go shopping in games?
Well, because there's a section in your RPG book which says gear, and it has a massive, page-long list of random stuff that is sort of designed to make you think, wait, why would I want that? Wait, hold on, I can think of 2.5 reasons why I might want wax, or an extra signet ring, or wolf's bane. What the hell's wolf's bane? I don't know, but it sounds cool. And there is a certain inherent, the gear list in your game is sort of meant to make you want to have all this gear. The thing is, it's meant to present possibilities. Maybe you want the big super gun that's the thing. Maybe you want a +3 sword. Maybe you want to hire the services of a spy or assassin. Possibilities are listed in the book because it came up in playtesting. Never mind.
Your order has arrived.
No, it's just a fake call. Anyway.
Right.
But yeah, the gear list in the average RPG is this list of possibilities, and it offers avenues to interact with the game in different ways, and so it's sort of naturally inviting. So people want it. How do they get it? That's where there's sort of we in our modern world are very used to we go to a store and the thing will be on the shelf. Whereas in, say, the far distant future of trekking stars, you may need to go to the planet of crystal bunnies and ask for the quantum entangled replicator signum from, 3 godlike computers. Or
just get the industrial replicator to bang it out. Be grand.
Agreed.
The whole reason I think why even why price lists and equipment tables and all exist is really to give players more options and more power. And some of it can just be straight up blatant that the more money you spend, the more powerful it'll be. And that's often the case with say, up until the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons, whereby now money's pretty much useless for in-game power, aside from hiring a bunch of dudes. With the other one is flexibility. Flexibility is often power as well. And that's why we tend to want to put some kind of control on. Because if you're trying to maintain any kind of system balance, if people can just get whatever they want when they want, we're playing Shadowrun and we just get all the top-end hardware because we want to have it, then that's fine. Now, you can have it in a story-wise session that, okay, well, you can have all the best hardware. Why? Because you're a runner team working for a corp, and the corp will get you the best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're down low private operators picking up jobs from random Johnsons, then
you can afford it.
It's probably going to be a story. Like, you're going to need to get this stuff off the black market, and you're rocking up with a suitcase full of a lot of creds, like a lot of new yen. You're going to want to make sure that you're going to want to watch you're not double crossed, and that whole getting the gear can be an operation in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
To get the gear to do the job, we need to do a job getting gear job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird. I suppose it boils out of the fiction, as you say. These are illicit items, and the more civilized the world, the more things tend to be illegal.
Speaking of getting stuff, though, if you guys will give me 1 second, I have to take bread out of the oven.
And now, dear listeners, we are moving into our home bakery and householding section as Liam goes to grab the bread he has not purchased. He has decided to make himself. But we'll do crafting some other day.
No, we really don't do crafting.
We've done a lot of crafting. But Liam makes a great point that there's... I think it's a weird kind of thing that in sci-fi and near-future RPGs, the things you really want, the things that are most effective in the world of the game, can be... It's not that you can't buy them, it's that you're not allowed to buy them, or the people who are selling them might be very, very dodgy. The reverse is almost true in fantasy sort of games where the high-powered items, the ones that aren't in a dungeon somewhere, are probably being made by a magic user who is offering them on a shelf somewhere in a shop in a town of about 400 souls.
I think we need to exclude 5th Ed from that. 5th Ed just basically avoided that whole thing by just saying, nobody else knows how to make magic items. They're just weird things that are gone.
The magic item shop, though.
Yeah,
where does it come from?
The thing is, though, is that very often I feel like, again, modernity sort of invades, and people have this very particular idea of how convenient a certain thing should be to get, whereas, that doesn't actually pair out in the fiction. And if the party is not invested in the idea that getting something should be a process, then they'll sort of expect, why is it in the local shop? It's a +3 flaming broadsword forged in the heart of a dying star. Like only Marvelous the Magnificent has one, and it's just like, well, he's clearly just across the road because we want it really bad. Like, it's going to be very hard for players to just sort of abandon their modern attitude of, well, I'll just buy it on Amazon and it'll come in a week.
The big upset, I think, certainly for a lot of people, is, say, if you look at Eberron. Eberron is, by design, kind of a low-level system. If you look even at the NPCs, if you look at the books, I think there's one level 20 NPC. Most of the other NPCs are all around level 5, level 7. There might be a couple of 10s knocking around. Low-level magic pervades the system. So if you want to rock into a shop and buy a +1 sword, absolutely, there you go. But there's no level 15 wizards knocking around there making +5 swords. So
they are
once you get to
working
a certain
for
point,
the king. or their own.
You're not getting your you're not getting your +4 sword. Like, there's no level 12 wizards, and if there are, they're not spending their time making swords.
Hmm.
Yeah, Eberron is interesting because it also, if we're talking about shopping, we've talked about shopping in terms of goods, things you can put in a backpack and walk off with. But Eberron folds a magical economy in with a service economy. One of the main things about Eberron is that you have these dragon mark inherent abilities that people are born with, or that they develop. And they are, for the most part, sort of useful skills that are then commercialized by the guild system and turned into the dragon houses and turned into a means of economic enterprise that is that we won't go into economics too deeply, but Eberron's fascinating premise is that low level magic can raise all boats. The bog standard citizen in an Eberron game probably has a much higher quality of life than you might find on the Sword Coast or in other civilized high magic settings, but with a much more feudal sort of outlook to the day to day. So magical services as part of shopping. Maybe you don't get off the shelf +1 swords, but there's a guy who can make your sword +1 if you can pay him enough. What do we have to say about magical services and obviously alchemy and things like that?
I mean, the big problem, like D&D is such a weird one to try and discuss because it's almost like there's two economies. Because if you go along and if you look at the value of trade goods, you want to get, I don't know, like a pound of flour. It's coppers, Whereas if you then want to get the slightest bit of magic, even like, okay, I want to go buy a healing potion, that's 75 gold.
That's 3 years,
so I could buy
labourers' wages or something.
I could buy like a ton of flour for that much money.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Like wagons.
It kind of deals with magic items being like the equivalent of you rocking up to the Ferrari dealership because the costs are just so out there.
Yeah, and yet we still imagine that a magic item shop is you're going to a place full of, weird. We imagine it more like a pawn shop than, a wizard's tower with like golems walking around and things. It's like, because an awful lot of the time DMs don't want to either make something so commercial in their game because that would seem unmodern, or they don't want to have the super powerful FVC around because then that invites why doesn't he kill the dragon?
I think you probably just want to make it that rather than the old trope of the retired adventurer goes to run an inn, the retired adventurer goes to run the magic shop, and he's got his mate the level 15, and she'll tear the head off anybody who who even thinks about messing with the magic shop guy. And she's pretty happy. She's got her little farm outside. Maybe she does a little bit of brewing on the side or something. And why don't they deal with the dragon? Well, they're retired,
Well, yeah, and go ahead.
I do like that idea of a retired adventurer who's like, if you consider all the magic items that pass through your hands, playing a fantasy game, and like they're just taking up room in the back. So pull out a mace. It's +1 shadow mace, mate. I think I got it off the Haunted Coast. I've never used it. I've no idea. I think it's meant to scream the name of your victim.
Sorry, I just like the idea of fantasy by itself.
150. It's just 150 as is.
I mean, if you're looking at 3.5 in Pathfinder, it's a solid retirement plan, because if you go to a magic shop, you're selling stuff back for half book value, but if you set up your own shop, you're selling it back for book value.
Yep.
There you go.
But I want to move away from the shop itself and maybe towards how players use it, because I feel like if you are getting these incidents of I feel like it's good. You're going to get these sort of, maybe it's a mismatch of expectations where you have let's say we have the buyer and the doer. The buyer wants to roleplay with your quirky shopkeeper that you definitely have, DM. You've definitely got a fully started out and characterized shopkeeper in this place, right? And they have, we need this in case werewolves show up, and we need this to look around corners, and this and this and this, and they have like plans. And on the other side, you have Doer, who has their sword, he has his shield, he has his full plate. He wants to go to the dungeon now. What do we?
Leroy Jenkins. Just charge on in.
Yeah, a little bit. And like, yeah, you could say that maybe Mr. Doer would possibly should consider whether or not he is truly prepared or not. But if, depending on the system, maybe he is. Maybe there are going to be no rust monsters or, vampires that he really needs to worry about. And he can just charge on in with a sword and expect to get out of it with a couple of hit points left. So, should you have a shopping experience?
I think the balance, yeah.
Should you have a shopping experience that caters to both these people somehow? But or is it an impossible match?
You can't offer experience to people who don't ask for or show any interest in engaging with them. Like how would you engage Mr. Full Plate in the art and active shopping if it's simply not what they showed up for? That's true of almost anything in any game. Liam?
Well, I'm running Death on the Reich now at the moment, and part of Death on the Reich is that you end up on a barge and you're going up and down the Reich, and you can do trading in the towns you go on.
The Reich is a river.
A couple of my players enjoyed it. I found the trading tedious, and one of my players found the trading tedious. So we just kind of went with, let's just do a couple of rolls, or we can just do it by email and stuff, and that seemed to work okay. I thought it was a happy enough compromise. Like, people aren't going to get fabulously wealthy doing it, so you don't really have to worry that much about, like, they're going to buy up half the empire. But it's more just that it's kind of time consuming, and you're flicking through tables and stuff, and if you're into that, great. If you're not into it, then it's not good. It takes up a lot of game time, and people can be bored. And that's the thing with shopping. Like, again, if you're the character who has the full plate and the sword, and you're like, well, I don't need to shop for spell components.
You're standing outside a changing room somewhere, waiting for the bard to finish picking out the right hat.
No, there can be a bit of trick with that as well. And like what I tend to do, if one person's really interested in buying a suit of armor or whatever like that, and the rest of the party standing around, two members of the party going shopping, and you've got two members of the party standing outside. Well, if you need to introduce some NPCs, or if you need to introduce some rumors or something like that, then have them randomly talking to the bouncer or something, and the bouncer's like, "Oh yeah, there was a bunch of guys, shady guys hanging around last week with these cloaks on. Didn't like the looks of them. No, they all had they all had this same tattoo on their cheek. Didn't seem right. Where they? They were hanging out down by that inn down by the docks. Yeah, that's where they were. Yeah. So I think,
or I've seen them going in and out of this shop.
You just need to balance the screen time. Like, if you are, absolutely let people have their bit of a shopping thing, but maybe watch the duration, how long it goes for, and make sure you engage with other players who aren't interested in it.
Yeah. So maybe just sort of have something in mind. Like, assuming like you have time to plan for your shopping session, and it isn't just like you've built up all the momentum. You found the guy with his dagger in his back, with a note in his hand, choking out his last breath, and you saw the next village over is on fire, and you got all this narrative build up, ready for the dungeon over the hill, and it's like, oh wait, no, we need to get more rope. Run off to the general store and have half an hour of role playing.
You just need to say, if something is pressing, then you go, look, that town is on fire. Either you go deal with that, or by the time you get there might be on the left. Like, this is time sensitive.
Yeah. You're going to know when you're
it's just
shopping
50 feet of rope. They find there's a well that has a rope with a bucket on it. You could always take that and then
grab it on the way.
Yeah, people won't be happy with the rope from the well being gone, but if you have your rope, or there's a ladder there from a glazer who appears to have been killed by a bunch of goblins. You can take his ladder.
Rope saga is now solved. But you do know when your shopping episodes are coming. They're coming when your character's saddlebags are absolutely stuffed. The expectation is get loot, offload loot, wake up in tavern, repeat. Because again, you go to buy stuff, you're also going to buy services. The expectation is that you're blowing off steam, having gone through some pretty high pressure situations. So a lot of what we've talked about, a shopping trip, acquiring things. Sometimes you want to lose something, memories, and your shirt. If you've got a gambling problem, you go and look for the services. You go to the tavern and employ or purchase the services of a wise bartender, some saucy. How far can I go with this now? Some hospitable hosts and hostesses.
People of negotiable virtue is how I like to put it.
Well, that's one way of talking about adventurers, yes. And maybe drop a few coins in with the drop a lot of coins in with the local religious leaders to make the next resurrection go smoothly. Things like that.
You just keep that spell slot open for me there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If my head and nothing else ever comes in here, see what you can do. There's lots of ways for shopping to generate the next adventure. Someone needs something, or you want something badly enough, but coin is not the only way to get it. Lots of good things there. Is there?
I mean, one thing that struck me though when you say they come back with their saddlebags full, there's generally an expectation from players that when they come back with all that stuff, that they're going to be able to unload it.
Yeah. Yeah, there has to be something to spend it on. Otherwise, why did you acquire it?
Yeah.
Like,
well, not even that they could spend it, but that they could turn it into cash. Like you rock up to the village and you're like, "Hey, blacksmith, will you take this gold necklace?" And I was like, "Why would I take a gold necklace? I can't feed my family with a gold necklace. I can't give the miners up the road a gold necklace for the ore that I need to make my stuff."
Yeah, it'd be somewhat circular, wouldn't it?
It kind of needs to be a certain size for that to even make sense. Like if you rock to a village, coin or barter is what they're gonna do, what they're gonna take.
Yeah.
Well, see, adventuring can be a service as well. You don't necessarily show up unannounced and say, "I've got all of this cobalt chainmail. Will someone buy it?" You could be arriving back at the village to get the reward for clearing out the kobold den. Mm-hmm. So there's your money. There's the transaction. Adventuring, money. And whatever we picked up along the way is kind of a bonus, I suppose. Can we convert it right now? Maybe not.
I do think that's a good point, though. I think Liam's point has a point. It's like, it's... Well, also I wanted to go back to the carousing thing, because, like, the idea of a carousing table and a D100 table of silly things that happen after you get drunk is an interesting thing that I don't think enough games have, but that may be a future.
Adventurers turn up in town and the economy inflation skyrockets, just like the King of Mali turning up to the Hajj.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. It's like, the thing is, like, we've sort of got, like, there's sort of the, if I want to use the Gygaxian dungeon terms for this, there's sort of the castle, the Castle Greyhawk model, where you have the castle, which is the massive dungeon, and next to it is a city where, there's all kinds of stuff that you can just throw money at. But there's also the Village of Hamlet model, where you got the tiny village where everyone has like 5 copper pieces underneath their floorboards. And there's this starter dungeon here with a bit of stuff in it. But you're not meant to stay, looting that one dungeon forever. You're meant to loot it once. There's just enough economy in the village to turn the whatever bricks you
go back there, Shane. There's a couple of doorknobs and stuff we haven't robbed yet.
Yeah.
The amount of dressed stone in that dungeon, we could build an entire new town.
Yeah. Okay.
The economics, the macroeconomics of all of this, it doesn't work. And I don't think we should get too hung up on that. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. But that's not really what all of this is about. having fun and entertaining your table is what you really have to work in service of. Where do all these swords disappear when blacksmiths buy them off you for some reason?
Well, that's it. That's what I was getting at, the expectation of being able to unload it. Like, if you do rock up with your 20 sets of cobalt chain, who's going to take it? Like,
I pulled exactly this trick.
You're saying you get the reward for it instead of being able to do it. I guess the blacksmith is about to take it for pittance because he can use the metal for something else. Like, but he's not. The chain itself is going to be worthless.
Exactly that. I ran my players through a dungeon of necromancy. It's Scream Necromancy. Those who were there will know what I mean. And they arrived back with a bunch of chainmail or breastplates that taken off the skeletons, and plopped all of this dusty armament in front of the blacksmith. And I thought about it, that if they sell this, even at the knockdown price listed in the books, they'll make out like bandits. Never mind the cursed gems or whatever they got. They're like, just the chainmail is worth
half book value of 100 GP chainmail, even going a quarter size and knocking the book price off a little bit still.
Like, they're level 1. So I kind of scratched my head at the blacksmith, looking and went, well, I mean, still an arm in this one. It's like it's a very old style. No one uses this anymore. You got it out of a tomb, and it's a rotten trick. But it's the only thing that would have kept things kind of on balance at that point. So, while I say we shouldn't really bother ourselves too much about it, if you've got to kind of dissuade your players from simply picking up every doorknob and old bit of tat they find in the dungeon. I think like weight limits were really what decided this back in the day.
Well, you can often have the conversation with your players of like, look, guys, you'll come across treasure and it'll be treasure, and you can have the treasure. If you guys start taking every doorknob and every bit of cobalt chain and all that, then we're going to really start bringing in weight limits. And sure, you guys can bring a wagon up to the dungeon and leave it parked outside, but it's not a lot of wolves around there in the countryside. You leave a couple of horses or donkeys out there unguarded. Oh, you hire some guards. Well, guards get greedy. They could just take all your stuff. How much of a game do you want to make into this for this small amount of gain they might get financially from stripping every bit of, they're adventurers, not metal thieves,
Yeah. So I think
there's one other. Go ahead.
Don't get too hung up on the macroeconomics. But there's still fun to go shopping. Shane. Yeah.
There's one element I want to go over, and that is, I think, possibly the most contentious issue, which is time. When you say, I have accumulated 1,500 gold pieces, and I would like full plate armor. And the blacksmith was, very well, sir. We'll organize the next 2 weeks of fitting and forging steps. And I was like, what? No, we're going to the Temple of 1,000 Kobolds tomorrow. Just give me one off the shelf. It's just like, that's not how full plate works. You have to have it all specifically fitted to you. And then the town gets burned down in petty vengeance.
So I guess what I've tried to do with my game is that I try to get people to say, okay, well, and this is Warframe, so it's perhaps a little bit easier, but it's like, okay, this is your current career. What is your next career? What trappings do you need for that? Or what's the recommended trappings for that? And what are you shy of? And then that kind of telegraphs to me how I could work it in. So like that with the full plate, you're probably going to know your fighter's going to want full plate, like as soon as they can afford it. So you kind of want to maybe plan that into your session that, okay, finish your first adventure, you got a couple of weeks of downtime and you've got enough money for your full plate. So why don't you go get that fitted while you're hanging around town? I think you need to be a bit more proactive with your party's needs. Which assumes they know in advance, as opposed to just look at, I got 2,000 gold. I'll go shopping. Oh, holy crap, full plate. They could spring it on you, like.
Yeah. I feel like we maybe need to be more open with players about, what are their desires, what are their aspirations, and, build that itself, even if it is something as simple as equipment. But also just like, it depends on something. Like you said, it's a lot easier in Woofrup to justify, we're going to take 2 weeks off here in this town and just drink in the tavern because the crappy ale is relatively cheap, and you probably need 2 weeks just to recover from all your injuries. But in something like D&D 5th Ed, was just like, no, I have spent 8 hours sleeping. I am now fully functional. I can now jump to the moon. And it's just like, people do not want to stay still for extended periods of downtime because often it can just feel wasteful. I've got all these fireballs and lightning bolts. I really need to use them efficiently. If I just sit around waiting, I'm leaving fireballs on the table.
I guess that's where you could tie it in with a festival or something like that. That's kind of keeping them in town, you know. It is a bit more work, yeah. And some people just do have wanderlust, so they just want to get going. But
I've seen people just charge into some of the most fearsome random encounter tables that I've ever seen, simply because my character can't sit still. So clearly he must wander out into the jungle and get himself set on fire.
Well, I mean, that could be the again, festival quest board, something that okay, they can keep busy, but they keep busy close to town, so they can be popping back in and out rather than going off down to the jungles of fake jungle land.
Assuming you're willing to simply embrace the gaminess of going and buying things, especially really powerful things, I'd like to propose an idea. I think it'd be interesting to see a system that is a bit like a card draft in a CCG. So you could have a deck of sort of opportune items, maybe single-use things. The Numenera oddments or oddities table comes to mind. But if you had a deck that when you hit town, you see this in computer games as well. When you hit town, the GM lays out 5 cards from the deck, and there's an opportunity there to buy those things the first day you're in town, and maybe some people pick them up and, redeal and have these things be there to sort of catch the player's eye. And they might think to themselves, ooh, I could really do with a vaporizer and a bucket of knowing. So, yeah, let's see what I say. I've brought this stuff back, I'll sell this stuff, and now I can buy one of those. Great, I'll get the card and I can use that. And when I run out of bucket of knowing, I'll be back for a refill. It'd be interesting to see. So the GM doesn't necessarily know what's going to be available that day. The players don't necessarily know, but they know it's in the deck somewhere. And as they buy stuff up and use it, the deck gets a bit thinner, so you can look at how you might replenish it. It could be interesting to give commerce a little bit of that taste of supply and demand, rarity, the frustration of not being quite able to find what you need, but there's an alternative there. And the sort of the window shopping pleasure of shopping, that you can see stuff that you don't necessarily want to buy, but it's interesting to think about how you might buy it, or how the bard might buy it.
Don't give them the catalogue, but give them a couple of pages out of it.
Exactly, and shuffle those pages every so often and see what happens. There could be some potential for some fun there. Also, it could be a deck of cards, which makes it very Kickstarterable.
I've seen item decks and stuff around. I mean, they're often for, a set adventure path or whatever like that, and you buy the thing and you flick out. You find this Sahedron medallion. This is what it looks like.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to whether you want where do you want the joy of finding to be? Because you can have that deck of random cards for the shop in town. You also have it for the dungeon. Maybe you want the dungeon to be where they must quest perilously, and that's the only place you want them to be looking for. Oh, you want a +1 sword? Into dungeon. They're toxic to capitalism. They make gold rust. No one wants them around town. But you have to go in the dungeon for those. Or maybe you want the dungeon to just be where combat and puzzles happen, and all of the cool treasure finding is. Well, do you want to go to the regular shop, or would you like to go to the realm of Fanzar? He has a selection of +3 swords of various nefariousness. You can put pieces of the adventure in different parts of your setting if you desire. Maybe you're the kind of person who likes dumpster diving in a shop and finding what cool things you can get there. Or maybe you want it all to be, behind 3 to 15 kobolds at an ogre.
Sneaky Pete will give you a good deal. He'll get you what you want 9 times out of 10. Now the other 1 in 10, it'll probably be an ambush, and he's probably going to try and rob you with a bunch of thugs. But that's the breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have? I suppose in a world of magic, can we get stuff delivered to the dungeon if we run out? Can we have? Can I send a message?
If you're paying enough, I mean, that's hazard pay.
Yeah.
That's
honest Ike's dungeon delivery service.
Just give some gold to the Archmage Bezos, and he shall send his dronelings. All
deliveries are made
you get
by
your solicitor, you get your bank, right, and then you just message your solicitor, and they go to the bank, draw down a bank draft, and then they go to the magic shop with the thing, with the payment, with an extra bit, for them to teleport to the dungeon and or to overland flight to the dungeon and teleport home.
I would prefer that all the deliveries are made by warrior women.
That's extra.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, it's Amazon. It's the best service. Get from Amazon's.
Your Amazon service just comes to your house and kills you.
Now that we're punning, we're probably done.
Yes.
So.
I mean, the only other thing I could think of with this kind of topic is the whole thing of a lemon dice. Like, if people want to try and get something that's particularly powerful, there's always the whole thing of, I say lemon dice because it's a specific mechanic that Heavy Gear brought in.
Right.
Heavy Gear had, you got 300,000 dinar to buy your gear. Okay, that's fine. All right, I want this 500,000 dinar gear. All right, well, take a lemon dice for every 50,000 creds dinar over 300,000, and you can have your 500,000 dinar gear. And it might just be that, on a particular part of the hit table, you roll twice anytime you get a hit. It might be that you get a random computer shutdown. There's a whole pile of extra stuff in there.
Cheap off-world knockoffs, yeah.
Off-world stuff's expensive, man. That's Aertsen stuff. Hopper tanks and everything.
Heavy Gear, yeah. I like that. Like, okay, it is. It's a +3 sword, but it sings and it's a cappella. So I'll knock 50% off, mate.
It's a Warhammer. It's made by dwarves, but if you attack a dwarf with it, it only does non-lethal wounds.
Bring the prices. We didn't even talk about bargaining, did we? Haggling.
Oh God, that's
charisma. Of getting the bard to do all the shopping. But perhaps we'll revisit shopping when we've filled our saddlebags again.
Yes.
So this has been the Adventure Party. We have talked a little bit about how and why you might go shopping in a world of adventure or high-stakes espionage or techno-future horrors. And as it turns out, plenty of reasons. But we are done for now, so let's get the bags home and everything put away, so that we can say that this party is over. Thank you for listening to the Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.